Do you feel free? Did it feel pressed? I didn't mean to press, but okay. Cool.
We're in. We're going. It's happening.
Yeah, I was just waiting. The music was just ending. This is The Dying of the Light, a series from the Starfall Collective. Starfall Collective is and has been for a while a collaborative storytelling group using, to varying degrees, the Dungeons and Dragons game system as a vehicle for creating rich and compelling stories in a world we've been developing for a while. You can find out more about the collective as well as the stories we are attempting to tell at thestarfallcollective.com. We are back with a new episode. Matt's gone. Oh, here he comes. And in the previous episode, he just made a grab some paper. In the previous episode, I'll show a visual for those of you who care, and this won't work as an audio, but this was the little sketch I had made of the opening to the apparently great fortress of the Headwaters, this really big, thick wall. You can see up in the corner here, there is a table and chairs. That's for a sense of scale of what you're looking into. This is a big deal. This is where tribute is brought up the river into the Headwaters, and other craft rafts and things come out and go and bring Iron Bell out into there. The party has come up into here, and after a fairly strenuous fight in which various of them tried not to kill people, and it looked like it sort of turned out inevitable. And Sevek ended up having to kill a couple of people, which an eagle-eared listener might have noticed. While he did not seem to want to, he didn't seem torn up about it. But maybe you didn't notice, and if not, then I didn't say anything. So yeah, let's go into this episode. We'll introduce ourselves, possibly for the last time. We'll see. Let us start with, how about Matt? And as you introduce yourself and say a little bit about something about your character, if you like, please, if you will, draw out of, describe a little bit about what's happening in your character, Diamondback in this case, with regard to the Headwaters, Sevek, the Lich, the things you have now seen in there. Oh, hey, real quick summary, because I don't know why I should have said this in my head at least once before we started talking. But I did a quick epilogue of the previous episode, just right at the end of the episode, to give us a teaser for this one. When you went through, you got inside the city, your captives drew maps that looked kind of like this. This is the city that one drew. That's the gate y'all went into. And the little dark ring right here is the city as he describes it. It is the part where they live, the weird purple freakish people living here, as he said. You have now gone in here. This city out here where the Iron Bell live is largely abandoned. You peeked your heads through the rather porous inner wall, more of like a fence. It was more of a reminder of the difference rather than like an actual barrier. But you kind of peeked through, and as far as the eye can see, in a sort of glowering gloom over everything, darker than probably it should be, are just dark soil, nothing growing meaningfully, and endless empty cages of all manner and size, shapes and purposes, just cage after cage after cage, empty. Occasional little mounds of soil, and that's all you see in the entire center that you can perceive of this place. Okay, Matt, please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Matthew Talamini. I'm a writer and web developer based in Providence, Rhode Island. You can find my stuff at MatthewTalamini.com. That's Matthew TALAMINI.com. I play the shirtless wizard Diamondback, who is confused. He was all for fire and the sword. He was interested in overthrowing his oppressors, in hearing the lamentations of etc., and breaking their political power, possibly replacing their political power. And they seem not to be here. He's currently torn between do we investigate and find out what really is going on here, or do we put all of this to the torch and all the remaining people to the sword? Would it help if we did?
And you may remember you got a little bit of intel from the two captives that you had, who more or less said they just don't know the things you wanted to know. They don't know what six you're talking about.
Yeah.
What in the world?
So these are not.
What
These are pawns.
That's right. That's fair assessment. What you do know, or what they did know, I should say, is that they had already amassed the force, and their best guess had started marching some time ago. That's what they knew.
And he's also based on his ally Yoshka, he had thought that and also the fact of the mysterious anti-magic field that this stranger Zebek seems to have. He had thought that Zebek might be demigod, and he thought that there might be some sort of magic by which he could overthrow with a word this power of the Iron Bell. It doesn't seem to be the case. He seems to rely on violence the same as Diamondback does. And so there was one sort of possible plan emerging in his mind if Zebek had revealed himself to be a great power. But since he's just a normal power, that plan is not going to be going forward.
Okay. How about you, Toll? Pat?
Hello, I am Pat, playing the half-orc druid Toll, and I think Toll is starting to feel a little orky. He feels like there's a big fun battle coming, and he's looking forward to sticking it to his former masters.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Toll had been, he wasn't exactly rescued. He took advantage of some chaos to flee from his captors. He had been a slave, a tribute slave taken by the Iron Bell, and that's how he encountered the party. He's in that respect, he's got a different sort of origin story than the rest. So it makes sense you'd have a different kind of view of the Iron Bell that way. Toll had been taken as a slave, but had not been brought up to the headwaters. He was still en route if he ever ended up getting there. All right, how about you, Aaron Joy?
Sure. My name's Erin Joy. I play Neno. She's a forest gnome. She's a cleric level 6, ranger level 3. Her heart was won while she was in Zevek's land. Yeah, she wants a gardened world. To that end, as weird and possibly naive as Zevek is, she wants to keep him alive. Now that she's out and the magic seems to be evading her right and left, and not in any way she can understand, it just seems to be There's no going back for her. She's even more tied into the let's get a garden world plan. So here she is at the headwaters. She would be content if nobody would ever come back to these headwaters to just turn that giant dirt area into a garden. But something's fishy because it is as gloomy as she has ever seen. So it doesn't. It looks more ungardenable than her familiar, very ungardened forest. So she thinks there's still some conquering to be done. Her disposition prior to this whole adventure is protect the little ones. Now she doesn't really see herself surrounded by little ones, and she is the least able to protect of anyone in her party. So her perspective has shifted to she's sort of self-appointed herself one of Zevek's mighty men. Let's keep him alive. Let's keep things working so that eventually he can teach us how to garden. That's her goal here.
All right. Josh.
Hi, my name's Josh. I am also a web developer and a crypto enthusiast, and hear my opinions about such things on the Bigfoot Society podcast, where I spoke extensively with the host Jeremiah.
Cryptozoology, not so much cryptocurrency, or maybe both.
I'm crypto really, but yes, specifically cryptozoology. I like hidden things. And I play Inkatink the Kinku, who has many voices, but not one. And Inkatink is a little miffed that he didn't get to Guantanamo Bay, either of these guys, to get some real information out of him. But he is at least considering the concept that there are innocent people here in this bastion of the Iron Bell, but he is not totally convinced because he heard a number of comments from even these two plebes on guard duty, and they seemed to be extremely condescending and dehumanizing of anyone who is not living in their city. They called others rats and seemed to think that they were privileged for living inside and had no care whatsoever for the welfare of anyone outside of the city. So I think Inkatink at this point is pretty up for the idea of starting a new garden with a good controlled burn, because there's nothing that releases essential minerals into the soil like fire. So Inkatink is ready to speak as much retribution and wrath upon these people who have killed his entire, not just family, but his entire clan. He doesn't know of anyone else of his species anywhere in the area, as far as he knows. So he's ready to take as drastic a measure as his party will allow him to take. So,
Okay. And Yoshka, Jared.
Hey, my name's Jared. I'm playing Yoshka, who I guess progressively over this adventure of twists and turns has been exposed to bigger worlds and with greater things and greater creatures than he knew existed. And through those encounters has had some feeling that he's playing a part, or like something like he's being led along by fate, except he keeps being surprised that there's a lot that he has to sort out to stay on this ride or something like that. So he prefers to talk things out, but convinced that we're not going to be able to talk this out, he's set to go in and find the 6 and deal with them or die.
All right. So we pick up our episode. You have all had a long rest in the tunnel while you waited out the night. You will recall two important things, maybe a couple of important things. When you went and scouted out, the area where the Iron Bell, right inside the really, really giant wall, the area right inside of that was where they live. The buildings are made of stone and of high quality. They're not like necessarily all worked stone. It could, some of it's like river stone or any kinds of thing, but it's generally, there's not growing stuff happening a lot in here. You know, maybe some random bits, but it's paved granite or something like that. And the buildings are against the wall, or, you know, a couple of freestanding ones. And it's just empty. There's torches on some. There were a few lit torches that were, a couple of them that were dying out, but the rest of it's just dead. You saw in the nighttime, you looked and saw, you know, there wasn't much. As you went out in the morning, it was still empty. There was nothing to be found meaningfully. These two guys were here. In the daylight, in the morning, you noticed two things, or a couple of things. One is, when you looked out the tunnel, the way you came, out here, you were in here, looked out the tunnel to here. It was the familiar sort of brooding daytime of greens and yellows that you're used to from Simderon and Garatone. But inside, if you looked that way, even though it's open above you and there's no canopy that you can see on the inside because there are no trees, there's no whatever, it's dark like night. Not quite as dark as night, just, you know, it's very dimly lit day. And as you look over to the inner part where the purple ones live, it's dark there, much more like night. Not pitch black, you can see, but it's twilight, the time of evening where you can still see, but maybe the fireflies are starting to come up from the ground, and it's dim. And it's that way even now during the day.
So no lower canopy. Can we see any upper canopy?
As you look up, it's difficult to see, to know what you're seeing, because you get the impression that above you it fades to black, but it sort of just fades from dark to black. How far are you seeing? It's not clear. No pun intended. So here you are. Episode starts. I'm going to have you start with rolling an investigation check. You're looking around investigating. This will be the last coerced thing of this episode, probably.
10.
9.
Shout out to the 2 crew.
10.
All right, y'all are really overwhelmed.
19.
Except for Diamondback. Diamondback is on point.
Diamondback is a wizard.
And I was going to ask, I was going to send my bat out. Can I have my bat fly around and make an investigation?
Your bat is not here.
Oh, okay. I thought we had said in a previous.
Zevek, however, is here.
Can we send Zevik to fly around?
You can request it.
Can I have the
Also-
bat, but he's feral and biting me and wildly trying? I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
I will. Let me just remind you of your quote unquote assets. If I'm not mistaken, Garriott went to help with Oravan. Is that right? Help Khaled. You have the 100-ish, 150. I mean, fighting men. You've got the acolytes of the Snake Clan, and you've got Arasanala and the ancient green dragon.
Copper.
Sorry, the ancient copper dragon. Yes, not green. He had that greenish hue when you saw him the first time. Arasanala went in and something like commandeered the barrack dormitory sort of thing of the guards as her private quarters. She's here and is very uncomfortable for obvious reasons, as is Diamondback, as are most of you, about there not being any magic around right now while Zevek is. But hey, here we are. We went in through a narrow hole. Who knows what's going to happen next? Your investigation, Diamondback. The rest of you, you're looking around. You finding.
And I suppose Yoshka would have his torch of the night watch out, light it, put the ring on, maybe offer to like Neno, Zevek to kind of come out ahead, so that as I remember, they had wanted Zevek out ahead. Is that right? At least apart from
He was
them?
trailing behind everything.
Okay,
So that in case he left some snail slime of unmagic.
that's right. Okay,
Something. That said, by the
so we'd
way,
be in the back.
yeah, if you continue with that bit, that said, it's not dark enough that you can't see. You can not see normally, but a torch isn't going to add much to your illumination except for your immediate area.
Okay.
It's still like twilight-ish.
If Arasanala is unwilling to be demagicked by coming near Zevik, maybe she will be willing to stay in the barracks and use the acolytes as runners, and Zevik can go exploring. Maybe she's been demagicked by virtue of sleeping a mere stone wall away from him.
I'll leave that for y'all to think about right for a minute, and I'm okay with however we work that out. Diamondback, you'll probably talk with Rasanala. You all look around. You find nothing of real value in the little buildings and stuff you look for. It is, as the guy said, there's just their house, and it has like a pot, and, stuff like that, right? It's where these two guys are living in their houses and whatever. But all of them, everybody else is just abandoned, and it's not like any great loot or treasure or anything. It's just some random, pretty nice houses for how y'all grew up, but they're
All
just
sorts of metal pots.
Yeah. stuff like that, right? Y'all are looking around, you see that Diamondback. You see something different, or you put the world together a little bit differently with your investigation. First, a little quick internal geometry, as you have been known to do a few times in this campaign, gives you a sense of scale of the place that you're in as compared with the Black City. You have a pretty decent sense of its wall and its shape and how flat or round it is. It's not like a tight little circle like Miradau was. It looked like a basket. The Black City was, wider. And now being able to see much further because there are no trees and you can, see around. Your impression, I'm going to draw this on here, is that let's see here. This circle, can you see that? Okay, is about the size of the Black City.
So it's what we're looking at is much, much bigger. And the Black
Much
City
bigger.
took it would take more than a day to walk all the way around it.
It was about a half mile. diameter.
Oh, okay.
This has some miles to it inside. Diameter, cutting through. You also remember that when you were on the outside and you all saw this tunnel, you went for a couple of hours the other way to try to see where the next tunnel, where the next river came in, and you didn't find it. Just wall for some hours.
Right.
That is corroborated by and feeds into your picture of about how big this is. So that's one thing you saw. Another is that this gloom that hangs over this place, making it barely day, isn't entirely featureless. On the ground, you see all, like I said, you Diamondback are looking more inward. They're looking at the Iron Bell part, but you were looking into the place. On the ground, you see many cages. But far away, you see what looks to be a silhouette of a very large black sphere above the city, maybe a couple 100 feet, hovering above the city, above the Iron Bell place, the headwaters.
I don't see anything supporting it.
You don't see anything supporting it. It's a large black sphere, and it's like I said, it's a silhouette, and it's in the blackness. So you're like, it's
Right.
darker there. Roll me one more perception check as you're espying this thing.
I have a magic item.
Aha.
I can see the details of anything, no matter how far away, as though I was up close. So there's distance does not diminish the detail in which I see things, but also I get advantage on perception checks made to see.
Roll me, before you do that, roll me a, what is
It's
this?
the eyes of the eagle.
Yeah, no, roll me an intelligence, just straight up intelligence check with advantage on a DC 10. So you got a really good bit here. This is just to see if Diamondback realizes that the effect is suppressed with Zevek here.
Yeah, I passed. That's a 21.
Okay. There was a chance that it was like a really bad situation. Okay.
So I can tell that I'm looking through these wondrous sort of glasses helmet thing, and I can tell it's like they're not really working anymore.
And you know that you can travel for about half an hour or about 15, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, just to one's away from Zevek. Or you could ask him to go away from you and you go the opposite way and you get,
Right.
5 minutes, 10 minutes travel.
Okay. I'll make the perception check, but not with advantage then.
Okay.
That is going to be an 11.
And you're trying to do what? See details of the thing?
You would ask me to make a perception check, but yeah, I think probably to see details
that
of the
perception check was whether or not you. Oh, I'm sorry. That's your perception check. Yeah, great. Now you have your little goggles on. Is that what you did? You walked 10 minutes away so that you could be out of Zevek's range?
No.
Oh, okay. Just with him there.
No, because I realized that you asked me to make a perception check after I made my investigation check. So I just made that and it's 11.
Sorry, let me back up for a second. The perception check was to see what details you could pick out about the sphere.
Okay.
And then you said, oh, but I have these magic lenses, right?
Right.
Did Diamondback, you did realize, I gave you the intelligence check to see if you realized you would need to walk. Did you walk away from Zevek?
No.
Okay, great. That's all. Sorry, I just needed to I misunderstood that. Okay. With an 11, okay. Let me roll something here. A 2. Okay. You just contested against the cosmos and won.
Well done.
Yeah.
As ever.
You think that this black circle may have a dark gray band running around it.
Like a rings of Saturn.
Like a ring around it, sure.
Okay.
Horizontal, like very, very horizontal. That actually, as you peer, is maybe what gives you the impression that this black circle is a sphere. Maybe. It's hard to tell.
Okay. So
Yeah, so that's where y'all are.
I'm going to point that out to the others and describe what I see to them so that they know that that's there as well. And I'm also going to go back and report that to Arasanala, unless she's with us. But I don't think she came with us. She's back in the guard's house, the guard station. Yeah. So I want to tell her about the cages. I want to tell her about the difference in the darkness here. I want to tell her about the sphere, everything that I've seen. I want to give her my geometrical sense, my tactical sense of the distances involved. And I want to ask her, like, do you know what this is? What do you think I should do? Inkatink comes with me, I guess, probably.
Sure. She tells you, I have never been to this place, but I know of it from long ago, what their purposes were. I do not understand the cages. I would have expected a palace or a city or something. But I know and she has a sort of, well, roll me an insight check to see what she has in her tone.
14.
Okay. She has a kind of, it's a mix, it's a frustration with a little bit of feralness in it. Ferality? A little bit of anger. It's a whole bunch of that intensity mixed up that she's restraining really well. And she says, I know that they saved such as me for some purpose.
I would like to ask her, my lady, you speak of their purposes from long ago. What were their purposes?
And she says, when they came to my city on Garitone and Braka's behalf, it was to preserve me for their ends. But you, and she points a long, serpentine, scaly finger at you, Diamondback, and says, set me free, Avatar. I know not for what I was saved, but they keep me in storage no longer. Pat just left.
She seems to have told me that she knows that they were doing it for some reason, but that she does not actually know what that reason is.
She was trying to convey, or rather I was trying to convey, she has a mixed view of what they were trying to do here. She doesn't know any kind of grand plan or anything like that, but they've clearly been taking and preserving things like slaves and zombies and magic items and people like her, or beings, creatures, whatever, like her. And the impression that you get, she's trying to communicate clearly. She's not being cryptic. I might not be doing a great job, but she's trying to be clear that when you found her under the Black City, do you remember the condition in which you found her?
Yeah.
for some reason or other that she doesn't understand, they entombed her, encased her there in that undying way, rather than bring her here. But that the cages here that you described to her, at least, seem like they're in keeping with the cage they kept her in. They don't know why she was kept far away. She doesn't know why she was kept far away, but they did a lot of keeping.
Okay.
So, for something.
And I ask her again.
Nina's not there to chime in, but table talking. Who's the they that came and captured / preserved her?
Those on behalf of Garatone and Braca.
Yeah.
I assume the
Iron Bell or sorry. I'll
An
let you
archaic-
decide, Matt, whether or not you really have a finger on the pulse of Neno's inner workings to
Oh.
ask that.
That seems accurate.
No, Diamondback assumes that it's an archaic progenitor of the Iron Bell. Yeah, he doesn't, and if there was some difference, he wouldn't care very much about what the difference was. He asks her again, my lady, what my expectations also have been thwarted. I meant to break the power of the Iron Bell and set all of their possessions to fire. And we find that they are actually weak and being controlled by some purple entities called freaks. Do you know of any purple freaks?
And she says, they are of the kind of the coven.
Hmm. So, if we find any, we should destroy them.
She doesn't have a... Sure, go for it, man.
And then
Yeah,
he asks her if there's anything that she wants him to do. Like, what should I do?
She tells you that I'm going to say it this way instead of her voice because there's some nuance. I don't have ready for it, but she's uncomfortable. Here's what she says. She's uncomfortable going forward with Zevek. She's uncomfortable not going forward with Zevek and everyone. Roll me one more insight check, Inkatink, you as well, to understand something going on inside of her.
Indeed.
20.
Natural? Okay. Inkatink?
13.
Okay. Inkatink, you get her discomfort. This was a relatively difficult one, but Diamondback, you have a somewhat surprising glimmer of insight into her psyche here, that she fears this place and what's in it. Not that she knows what's here to fear, but something more like, here's what it is. Here's a good way to say it. You get the strong impression she doesn't want to be here alone, which is super weird if from your perspective for someone of her stature and
Right.
and by the way, she's not giving off hints, she's not whatever, you just know her. And also she's not aware of this in herself. She would not say, she wouldn't even admit to herself she's uncomfortable, and the reason she gave for her discomfort about Zevek, but she's also like, whatever, I don't want to go in, but I don't want to be left behind, but that kind of thing. She's basically told you a couple of things that are not quite putting her fear in the correct place. And you pick up with a 20 that her fear is of the unknown of this place. And she does know its power because of what it did to her.
I ask her if she would like to come with us in a separate group from Zebek. If we should split the company into 2 groups.
She does a gesture quickly, and little sparks of prestidigitation pop from her fingertips. And she thinks for a moment and clacks her sort of snaky fingernails together and says she's happy just to stay behind far enough that she's not without her magic, but close enough that she can see what Zevek and such are doing. She'll trail behind.
Okay.
Which, in this place, by the way, is not super far behind.
Okay.
If you have told her, because there's no trees, there's no stuff.
Okay. Yeah, so I invite her to do that. I suppose the Snake Clan acolytes will stay with her to serve her in every way.
Sounds good. And she
And then
wears her
I'll
regalia that enshrouds her, and her own organic hood is also up.
Okay, and I'll go back and rejoin the others, and I'll say to Yoshka, I have spoken with my lady, and she has very little insight to offer on the nature of this place or advice on what we should do next. Perhaps you would like to speak to the dragon and see if there's any wisdom available there.
Really throwing your boss under the bus there.
Sounds good.
The dragon has been more or less just resting in the river in the tunnel. The water, it's big enough that the water flows around him and whatever, but he's just letting the cool of it be there. It's not, the city part isn't comfortably wide enough for him to kind of do anything here, so he's just waiting.
Well, Yoshka will go back and invite, since we've already peeked into the big, what looks like a big wide open place with cages, he'll say, I think we found a place big enough for you not to get cramped or stuck. Would you like to come see? It's very empty.
And he's gonna be laughing some. And I just want to remind you of the lore that comes just from D&D, is that copper dragons are naturally and supernaturally mirthful. One of their, as an example, one of their lair effects is if you're in their lair, laughing gas comes up from the ground as part of, so everybody around them is like starts feeling things. That said, that's not the effect he's going for, but he's so.
Let us look at this place.
Okay, this way.
Yeah, so you take him up, and it takes very little time for him to move that far up the river. It's like 200 feet, and he is able to pull up, and he swings his head around, and just is
such desolation. It is not as I imagined. It is not as I recall.
What were you expecting?
Before the trees came to this place, the days were bright. But when the accursed coven came, they brought with them the shadows of the trees and the shadows of the air. And they took the creatures and the dragons and everything and covered this place with this cursed forest. I do not know why the forest is not here as well.
Well, I suppose there's nothing for it but to go into the darkness and find those 6. Would you like to come in front with us, or in the back outside of Zevek's?
I am more comfortable with your peculiar friend than with the snake witch.
Me too. Good.
Things
Good
have been
time.
awkward since the breakup. For her. She's telling people it was mutual, but it was not.
All right. None of that's canon. That's all fanfic. All right. So yeah, you want to set out?
Yeah. Yoshika's totally game to go first with Zevek and Nano.
The party of 150, the guys are all happy to go. They are not put off at all by they have figured out how not to be by the dragon because of your trust for him. Zevek, they seem totally happy with him. He's great. He's friendly. He's kind and whatever. They're not super keen on the acolytes, and they're less keen on that weird hooded figure that's like 7 feet tall. So they all come at the front of the party, and Arasanala's tail is the tail. Roll, everybody, please, a perception check.
I guess I'm up with Zevek, so my fancy glasses don't work.
Okay.
10.
Yoshika got a 19.
Me too.
13.
Can you see? Either you're muted or you're pretending.
Pat and I are 10 friends. I also got a 10.
All of you feel this, but more acutely the higher your roll. So if you had a high roll, I'm happy for you to be the ones who mention it, if you want to mention it at all. The ones who have the lower rolls, you're like aware of the sensation vaguely, but whatever. You feel like you're being watched. It's strong. You really feel like you're being watched. As soon as you got inside the city, by the way, as soon as you came into the inner portion, maybe when you crossed into the darker cage portion, but somewhere in there, it was like you're just uncomfortable.
Yoshika would say something to Nano and
Do it.
Zevek. Is someone watching us?
DM, does it feel malevolent, or does it feel like we're on a stage?
On a stage, not like on a stage. I'm not 100% sure, but
Sometimes people watch you and you're like, this is creepy and awful, and other times people watch you and you're like, you're my students, you should be paying attention to me right now.
oh no, yeah, it's not like the guys around you are all like, what are we going to do next? It's more like some unseen actor is snooping around, keeping an eye on you or something. Something's going on. It's not right. Well, you know what I mean.
Have you ever felt someone looking at you from behind?
Yeah, that's
I know I have.
Have you ever had that? No?
Probably.
Huh.
I don't know.
I certainly have.
And then you look back and they look away or something, and you're like, how did I know that?
I feel like I have imagined it or read it.
Huh.
Well,
Diamondback is confer with Yoshika and say, it may be my finely honed strategic sense. It seems to me that we may be under observation by some unknown actor in the dark. Shall we announce ourselves?
Nano chimes up. Yeah, if we are not sneaking, we might as well face this head on.
Yoshiko looks and says, Yoshiko looks at Zevek and says, I don't think we're here to talk. Do you want to try it first? To Zevek.
Zivek says, "Sure. Talk to who?"
Whoever's
Ink-
watching us.
Inkatink speaks up and points at the gray. Can everybody see the gray sphere now? The black sphere now that Diamondback has pointed it out.
Y'all have been walking for a few minutes. It is faint, but with his trenchant description, you all believe you can see a black sphere in the void of the sky.
In that case, I think Inkatink says we should pop that bubble. We have a needle, and he points at Zevek.
That sounds interesting. We can't see anything else watching us. Does it feel? Yoshiko's gonna try to feel out if it feels like the possible sphere that he possibly sees is watching him. Just try that idea out. See if it feels true.
Every time you check one thing, it feels like it's coming from a different angle. Like if you look over there, it's like always like where you're not. But man, y'all are still walking, right? I'm assuming you're just going along at a normal speed.
Nano's going to be looking in the cages to see if the doors are open or broken open, or if there are any underground things.
So as you walk through these cages, there are paths between them. Some of them are stacked. Most of them are empty. Some of them are clearly dragged away. The cages were, like, you can see the drag marks. Occasionally, not very often, and you don't pass super close to one yet, but 50 or 100 feet away as you walk up and down the side. So the dragon is most comfortable for ease of space in the narrowing river. It's getting narrower as you're going closer. But he's able to go pretty smoothly there, as opposed to winding through all of these cages and stuff. But off to either side, 50, 60, 70 feet away, occasionally there are mounds of soil and rock that are not cages.
I would look around near those mounds to see if there are any tunnels. I'm remembering those two people who lived in the Bone Village that were
Skevrit, and they were feral halflings, semi-feral.
So I'm looking for something like that.
So you want to go over and investigate?
Sure. Yeah.
Roll me an investigation check.
Not funny.
Okay. You find one actually that's pretty close to you, and it turns out it's from farther away. It looked like a mound of black soil, whatever. It is, in fact, and the ground here is just sort of barren. But it's actually not quite just a mound. It's a little hill, small hill that comes up and then hollows down, and there's a staircase.
How many mounds like that can we see?
If you really survey, dozens, but among the thousands of cages.
Do they look
More than dozens, maybe 100, of course, or 50 or 80, some large number.
Do they look like they're in any pattern, like architecture, or
No.
just random? Okay. Well, Nana would tell the other people. Oh, I don't want to go underground,
Well.
which is surprising.
It's a good development for
considering who I
Nana.
am, right?
It means the story's working.
Diamondback would like to see what's in there.
It sounds like the way in.
So you pick one, the one that Neno found. Who's going to be going in first? What order?
Yoshka's game to go first with net. Well, is it darker? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's underground.
Like it would call for a torch.
Yeah.
Okay. So Yoshka's gonna go down with the torch, see if anybody wants to go first with him.
Nino is going to be on. She thinks that left is left hand. The left hand is probably Zevek's weaker side, so she's going to be hovering near his left hand.
Toll
go-
will volunteer to go with Yoshka.
Okay.
Nino's
Diamondback would
side's a
like to
little-
go
he's-
in the middle or at the end. And Mr. DM, may I remind you that Diamondback has a passive investigation of 16.
You may go for it.
My character, Diamondback, has a passive investigation of 16.
Say, I'm glad I thought of that again. Yeah, you go in and you trudge down. It's about maybe 10, 15 steps. It is not a well-crafted set of stairs. They're earthen, not meaningfully stone or anything. That there is some like stone in them, but and inside it's a kind of a weird set of bubbling little caves that are not very big. The whole of it is maybe 6 chambers. There are luminescent mushrooms and lichen and such creating a faint glow everywhere. And to the best of your ability to tell, there's a mound of earth with it's clearly not natural. It is, you would say, there's some way you could consider this decorated. As you put your heads together, you figure out you think this is a house. It's got like a place where people can sit or something. And there's some people who could sleep in one area. There appears to be some cooking stuff. There's nothing much to the place. It's just the whole set of it is about the size of a hut with a couple of rooms in it. And it's just kind of weird and gross. Damp and dank and smells like soil and rock.
Let's see if the others are like this. Not actually proposing looking at all of them, but she's suggesting go to another one and see if.
Yes, and let's head towards that ball while we're at it.
So you get back on your way, you go towards the river, and the next good opportune one is only a few minutes away. Like there's another one that's not too far away if you walk down. And it's not identical. It's not the same, but it's the same. It's a place where probably some people live.
Does it seem like it is proportioned for humanoids, or are we talking like giant radiating ants?
No, it's people tallish. I would say Toll is pretty comfortable standing in it, and he's a half orc. But again, there's just this like fungus that emits a faint light. It's really not a bright light or anything. It's enough for you to see by without your torch even, but it's like faint. With your torch, it's going to be lit better, and it's not meaningfully there.
Are there any doors or barricades or locks or anything?
Nope.
Okay, seeing none, Neno is going to suggest that these could be the homes of the jailers because they don't look like cages for underground people.
Strange to live right in the middle of the cages.
So, you want to continue on your way?
Yeah.
There's no value. Like there's not a treasure chest or anything. Right? It's just some random people being there. To your surprise, you've now traveled you've traveled a part of the way there. You're getting closer, and this big circle is more distinct now. It does indeed have a band around it. That band is a grayish white stripe that kind of encircles the entire thing, as far as you can tell from the side you're on. Toll.
Yes.
Roll me. No, don't roll. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, let's do it this way. Roll me an intelligence check. Just straight intelligence.
All right. That's another 10. That's my third 10 in a row.
Yeah. None of the rest of you are aware of this. I'll say it to Pat, for Toll. Obviously, you're in here, but your characters aren't aware or whatever. Toll, you hear. Yeah, you hear this.
Yes, come.
So y'all are walking along.
Well, I feel like he would mention that.
Go.
Did anyone else hear that?
Hear what?
The sinister. Yes, come.
No.
And Pat, with a 10, you kind of think it might be a good idea.
The group would not think it was a good idea if I said something?
No, I don't think so. You just were
Okay.
like, you don't exactly know what it meant either. Like it just like that, and you're like, okay, yeah, I can see that.
So it didn't sound like Morris?
It did not sound like Morris, no.
Tull,
Tull tells you.
where does this mysterious voice want you to go?
I guess the way we're going, and well, onward, I say.
In the distance, not too far away, 60, 80 feet, there is an old-looking person hobbled over with a cane. And he sees
Very
you
normal
coming.
thing to see in an environment like this.
And he sees you coming and starts kind of hobbling towards you. He's hunched over, he or she, you can't tell, hunched over and all old, and is leaning heavily on a staff kind of cane thing, and walking slowly towards you as you walk up the river.
Neto puts her blow dart in her hand, wraps her hand in her skirt, and steps in front of Zevik, preparing herself to trade on her elderliness if it seems like elder to elder is a good talking approach. But either way, she's going to get to the old man before Zevik does.
And it takes a minute or two, because the person doesn't seem to be hiding. He's just like creakily coming over to you. And as he gets close, he looks up, kind of cranks his head up, and it is a very old looking man. You'd guess if he was standing straight, he's probably maybe in the neighborhood of 6'8" to 6'10", somewhere in that height. But he's like really crunkled over. And he's wrinkled, and he's got purplish skin, and he looks at you, and he stamps his cane on the ground. And he says, "Your kind ought not to be here. They wouldn't have it."
Freak, Tell me your name.
Right, that was great. Um, why, when I was young, if I saw your... Yes. Come. And he begins to walk away in a different direction than he came.
Yoshika is stunned at his sudden change in voice. But it
Toll's
sounded
gonna
to
say,
us
I
like
think
he's
this guy's
not
got the right
holding-
idea.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he got, his eyes got lucid and different, and he just was like, said that, yes, come, and then walked away, hobbled away, still with a cane and everything.
Neno looks to Ink Tank, the voice expert in her awareness, with this like, what just happened expression.
Can I make an Arcana check to try?
You may, with assistance from anybody you want.
I'm rolling like garbage. Yeah, if somebody's going to help me, I'll roll again. But so far, that's a 12.
I asked
Maybe
for it. I'm happy to help. I don't know how.
maybe Diamondback should make it on his own. Because of
Rasanala will help
having-
you too, Diamondback.
Oh, Arasanala's far away from us, isn't she?
I mean, you have to walk 10 minutes back.
I'm going to walk 10 minutes back. And when I get to Arasanala, I'm going to my magic eyewear is going to come back online. Does that happen?
Yeah.
And then I can roll perception checks with advantage, and I can going on 10 minutes in front of me in as much detail as though I was there. So I don't want to do an Arcana check. I want to look very carefully at everything around here with my magical glasses and see it all perfectly.
It's okay with me.
And Arasanala can make an Arcana check. That's fine.
Is there a way for me to help Ink Tank?
He rolled. You rolled with advantage, right, Inkadink? Right, Josh? Roll your extra for advantage. That's from Nano helping.
There's a
Okay.
kind of action you can take it's called the help action. So you just say, I help him.
That got me up to a 14.
Okay. You don't know of any magic about this. It wasn't like, I mean, you know of things where you can communicate and stuff, but this wasn't communication. This dude, something changed, something different. You don't know what this is. Although,
18.
Inkatink, you are acquainted with rapid changes of voice, right? That's your people do that kind of thing.
Indeed. That's a Tuesday for me.
This was creepier.
Fair enough.
He was not mimicking something.
Yeah,
I'll give
I
you
turn to
that.
Nino and tell her, he is not a mimic. Maybe he is possessed? I don't know.
Remember the dragon said? I think that was the hand speaking through the glove.
Puppets?
And as you, and I'll tell you what you see in a minute, Matt. But as you say that, Yoshka, the let me roll for this intelligence check. And the dragon turns to you, because he's right there with you, and you just happen to mention him, and he says, sorry, he turns to you and Toll's there, and he says to Toll,
Yes, young manling. I think we should continue as well. I heard a voice too just now.
Diamondback, what do you want to see? What do you want to look at?
I look all around, but I'm particularly at the old man, and I wish to see the source of his power and the source of this voice. Optically,
You see
with
that-
an 18.
You see a raggedy old man. He's actually not ragged. He's just an old man who genuinely needs his cane, and or his little walking stick, and is genuinely hunched over. He's actually something like well dressed, considering the fact that he's wearing weird stuff. He's not like well dressed. He's just, he's not ragged. He's not some whatever. Your impression is he lives here and maybe wasn't in good enough condition to march or something like that.
Me and Arasanala follow behind at a distance, but I see everything perfectly.
Follow him from behind?
Follow the other party.
The party, okay. And looking around, by the way, you just see what you've already seen, which is cages, a few mounds of this weird little dirt stuff.
If we get close enough that my magic stops working, we stop for a minute and then continue following.
Does the floating globe look like the description we have?
He didn't look
I
at that.
assume
He was
you
just looking
would look
around
up.
at the stuff below, he said.
I'm looking at everything that I can see, especially the old man.
Okay, well, if that's what you got from about the old man. Do you look at the big sphere-ish thing?
Oh, yeah, sure.
It does indeed seem like a sphere. And then and Diamondback, as you're looking around, this it's sphere-ish, and it seems to be made of something like mist, but the outer surface of it isn't entirely mist. It has, for lack of a better word, walls or surface or something made of rock or mud, or it's got weird organic shapes. It's all black and whatever, but they protrude not very far out of the surface. And then there's mist, like most of it's mist, but there's like little things protruding out that put together this image of this thing. But around the entire thing is a strip of bright white stone, like the floating stone above the thing there. It's thick. It's from it looks like a thin band from the distance you are, but it's a thick, solid piece that is a stripe around the sort of like a horizon around the entire thing. And as you're looking at this, you see silently Zevek turn to Yoshka and Neno and say, so what's all this about come to me, come and see me?
I don't know who it would be, but the coven.
Okay, well, it sounded very strange. He was saying, I guess I don't know who was saying, come to me, come and see me. Yes, yes, come. And I'll tell you what, I don't think it's a good idea. Well, it's not that I don't think it's a good idea. It's that I don't think they're being honest. Anyway, Zevek's just chatting with you. This has been 5 minutes since the dragon, 10 minutes since the dragon said something about it as well.
Probably not.
So
Do you
Sorry, go
you
ahead.
want to do something else first?
He thinks and he goes, looking all around. I don't see much else to do.
We could try to break that,
Sure.
but then we might lose them.
Lose who?
I think I want to go see them.
Yeah. This thing is hovering in the center of the whole place. So
Is it still? Oh,
I say
this is
hovering,
so
it's
big.
hovering.
Like, how much closer have we gotten to it?
I'm going to tell you guys, although your characters would
Okay.
not necessarily have this clear of a sense, but I'm going to make it, let's call it, in the city, that's the sphere, but it's above everything, right? And y'all have come about halfway to it.
So it's like a mile diameter.
Maybe not quite. I just drew it here, but let's say a half mile or something. Oh, maybe ballpark. But,
Okay. Can while I have my
Yes.
my eyes of the eagle on and they're working from back here, I want to get as much out of that as possible while I'm away from Zebek. So I would like to scan my entire field of vision, and I'll just it says in conditions of clear visibility, you can make out details of even extremely distant creatures and objects as small as 2 feet across.
And while Diamondback, you're thinking to yourself all the merits of these lenses. Wow, I can see things at extreme distances, even 2 feet across.
Mm-hmm.
Arasanala turns and growls at you, saying, "What is this?" No, sorry, she checked it. What is this? Come where? Who? What is this I am hearing?
Was I with the other party when I was with the other party, with the other group when Tull first
Yes.
heard that voice. I say, my lady, I have not heard the voice, but some of the, at least one of the others in the forward group have heard it. It appears to be beckoning them forward, and that is what they follow. Have you heard it as well?
And she says, even now its whisper fades, but it is not as we are.
My lady, we need not go. We can watch what happens to them as they go.
She says,
It's quite an abasement for her to have categorized herself as a we with the rest of the people.
she says something. She's indecisive. The second time you've picked up on this issue here, she's uncomfortable. She would be uncomfortable left here among all of these cages. And just as a quick side note, Diamondback, I told you this before, I think, but I just want to make sure you've gleaned that the length of time that she was encased is lifetimes of a human, right? So this Baisugen legend that has gone on for hundreds of years and whatever, she's super uncomfortable around all these cages, considering her
Right.
history.
Oh, Diamondback hates these cages as well.
Yeah.
But do I
Okay.
see anything other than the mounds with the houses and the cages?
That's it. And the river and the sphere.
Okay. Great.
And it fades to blackness far past, like, I
Neno
suppose.
says to Zevek, "Sir, I don't hear anything. I haven't heard anything, but you seem to be hearing a lot." I'm noticing that the way he described it sounded like he was hearing more than Toll had said, and more than the dragon had mentioned. What's it saying? Is it talking all the time?
Diamondback, roll intelligence.
Just a straight intelligence check?
Maybe not.
Just a straight intelligence
Yeah,
check?
just straight intelligence check.
14.
Okay. You hear even you may come. Yes.
Can I respond in my mind?
Give it a try.
I think real hard. I do as my lady says for the honor of the Snake Clan.
So you do. And this happens. I'm rolling things, right? But this happens as you and Arasanala are figuring out whether you should stay or go. With your 14 roll, you are inclined that something like it's probably better to go. You're not like, yeah, man, we should totally go see this dude. He's going to be awesome. But it's more like a, yeah, you know what? I think that's probably what we should do. You're persuaded. So there you go. In answer to your question, what's it sound like? What's it saying?
Yeah, Nana was telling Zevik that she hadn't heard anything and asking him, is it constantly talking? What's it saying now?
He says, it just said something for a few moments and it didn't, I don't know. I didn't trust it. But I don't even know what it meant. And also what else we're going to do than go where we're going. So at this point, y'all have almost gotten just below the nearest surface. If you were to look straight up, you'll see just about the edge of this. What you now notice in front of you is another of these black mound type of things, but this one is not one of those little steroids. This one is a small mountain, a large hill, and the center of it goes up and pierces into this sphere. The mountain sort of does, almost as though the sphere is resting on the mountain, but there's no way. Like, if what you can see now, because you're looking at it, you can see it has this white disc. It turns out is all the entire bottom of it's a white disc with a darkness hanging heavy, a mist, a sphere of mist sort of falling out of it, right? And this, it's a white disc that as it fades into nothing on the other side of this mountain, the mountain kind of pierces into the center of the disc. Scale is very difficult to tell here because of just the white black sort of thing going on. And the white of the whiteness is very dim here, but it's clearly this bright white stone you're used to. What's more, here at the bottom, and you've seen it for a little bit, a few minutes now, there is a thin stream of water pouring off the edge of the disc. The disc is, you would say, guess maybe a quarter mile up, right? The hill goes up into the sphere. Maybe, sorry, the sphere is about a quarter mile up. The disc is above that a little bit, right? Because it's this hemisphere divider. This water that's flowing down, you can see it coming off of the white disc and falling. And everybody actually roll me an intelligence check, just a straight intelligence check.
11.
Yoshika got a 16.
13.
13.
I'm out of 10 purgatory.
Yeah. Josh?
16.
Okay. Teens, below teens, you look at this and the water is falling from a magnificent height, miles above. Like, it is bizarre. You have this weird sort of vertigo looking up at this. Those of you who had in the teens, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, whatever, teens and above, I guess. It actually doesn't look like that. What's happening is the disc, you can tell, is closer than that, but it's just a little bit, not a little bit, a relatively small portion of water is falling off the disc. And by the time it hits the river, which it is the water of the river that always flows out, right? It's a lot of water. It's almost as though the stream is thickening as it falls. More water there. Also, you roll me a perception check, everybody. You constantly feel like you're being watched.
Yoshika got a 16.
What were we rolling that time?
Perception.
Perception.
16. Is this a perception check that relies on sight?
No.
Oh,
Now-
I shouldn't have rolled with advantage. I'll take the lower one, 15.
Okay.
14.
That,
I got a nat one.
Okay. Pat.
Pat, you have to
Um,
open your eyes to make that check, by the way.
Yeah, this is actually a sound check, audio check. Pat, you are super uncomfortable. You're constantly feeling like you're watched, but you don't really notice this at all. But the rest of you, you keep hearing this thing. What is this? And you've been hearing it intermittently. It's not constant at all, but every couple of minutes, 5-8 minutes, it seemingly random. And the sound's actually really different too each time, but it's also the same. It's clearly the same sound. But now that you're here, you hear it's coming from the white disc or something above it or something. And it has these kinds of sounds like these echoing, broad, deep, screeching, horroring sounds. These sometimes seeming human and sometimes inhuman bellows and wails that stretch on longer than a scream should and with too little detail and too much horror. And then it stops. Now that you're directly below the plate, it's not quite as loud as it was. You also notice one other thing. You see these rivers, the water flowing from, you can just make out 4 points off of this disc where the water's coming out. One of them yours, the river that's in. You're guessing maybe it's one for each of the rivers, just based on how far it is around the circle. The headwaters? Where the water comes from, this water that flows forever out.
4 of them and not 6 of them?
It fades into the distance and you can't see the back of the shape here. And also, this water is too shallow. It burbles constantly now. Not evaporating hard, but the mist is emitted constantly from how close Zevek is. Looking up ahead, you can actually see the growing water shrink back just before it hits in this sort of radiant aura around Zevek. And behind you, the river rages fuller than next to you as it emerges from what Zevek seems to be doing. The river near you, Diamondback and Arasanala, is a torrent. But where you all are, it is a trickle of water. Not the same as when Zevek stands in the water when it goes and bubbles, but it's like suppressed hard.
The screaming up there, are the headwaters tears?
It does sound like something is suffering.
Diamondback, roll me a visual perception check.
Here goes. Wait, sorry. What do I get? It's only 2. It's actually going to be a 20. 18 plus 2.
Okay. As you approached, because you can see in very great detail.
Yeah.
The white disc on the bottom is basically smooth and has no features. It's featureless white stone. No meaningful features, right? Stone. The rim of it was maybe carved or something, the outer rim, but at least it had a lot of little holes, or sort of big holes, several feet in diameter, holes piercing it occasionally, not like all over the place. The water is coming out of a portion that looks like a V. So the disc is really thick and the V takes up about half of it and the water pours out. And the structure above that you see sort of occasionally emerging from the undulating mist, like it's as though the surface of the mist is right at the surface of this structure. But the structure that you see had what appeared to be a few random looking, you struggle as you try to categorize what you're to say here, but the structure, if you can call it that, feels like a building that was grown from rock or something like that. It's
This is on top of the sphere?
on top of the disc, the white disc.
Okay.
It is
All the
it
way
is sort
around
of
or just in one place?
all the way around that you can see.
Okay.
And importantly, an image snaps to mind. It was the first time you actually saw something like this. And it's not the same, but it's the closest thing your mind could get to what it was. They look like stalagmites almost growing from the white bit, like almost like they sort of, these walls or structure sort of grew up from it or something like that. But they have these cave-like entrances that you occasionally see as the mist undulates, that are some you think might be windows. It's really hard to talk about what you're seeing here because it's so different, but it does look like the interior space of the houses, the little weird dug pit houses that you went into. It has the same kind of quote unquote architecture, right? And you think that there were like windows or some random looking openings in that above.
Okay, I'll bite. Diamondback and would like to take Arasanala to the side a little ways so that he has there's a straight line between him and these structures that he's seeing, right?
A horrifying bellow pierces the silence.
A straight line that does not have Zebek in it. Zebek is off to one side, and then there's a straight line between me that doesn't, Zebek is not directly below my path between me and this.
Yeah.
And then he's going to say, my lady, if you will just stay here for just one moment. And then he takes out a potion of clairvoyance.
Okay.
And drinks it. You create an invisible sensor within range. Oh, what's the range? Oh, yeah, the range is 1 mile. In a location familiar to you or in an obvious location that's unfamiliar to you, the sensor remains in place for the duration, which is 10 minutes. It can't be attacked or otherwise interacted with. When you cast the spell, you choose seeing or hearing. You can use the chosen sense through the sensors if you were in its space. As your action, you can switch between seeing and hearing. So I drink this potion and I create this magical sensor, if it works, just inside, like 6 feet inside one of the windows of the structures that I see.
You do so. It is dark, but not black. It's dark like you would expect. It's a really heavy, misty night that, like you're used to. This is clearly a room of some kind with a purpose of some kind. It doesn't seem to have anybody in it right now. There's what you definitely take to be a doorway with no doors. It's like a cave doorway, but it's too structured to be natural. It's clearly a made thing, although it kind of looks grown like a way that a stalagmite would grow with like these little wobbly bits.
Do I see any furniture?
Yeah, I mean, it's a room with purpose. So you've got
there's
like a table,
tables and chairs, bookshelves,
sparsely. What's that?
Bookshelves.
This one just seems to have some what you think might be a shelf, which is stone or whatever this material is, outcroppings with
Okay.
random things leaning on them.
So okay, so then I will, after looking around for a minute, I guess I switch to hearing.
It is, you hear only distant, faint howls of pain. Zebek, I'm going to switch for a second to you guys. Zebek has started walking forward. He's just looking around a little bit. But, sorry, roll me each of you a d4, you two. So just and Toll too, roll me a d4.
And we're still approaching the old purple man towards the
He
temple
left.
below the disc.
He totally left. He's out of this picture.
Okay.
He like went away from you. He clearly is going away from you guys.
I got a 2.
Four.
Okay, 2 and 4. Toll and Neno, who are up with them. As Zebek actually walked closer, the underside of the sphere, part of the sphere disappears. The mist of the sphere disappears. And I'm going to describe this to you guys in a way that your characters wouldn't necessarily exactly think of it, but it's as though a sphere around Zebek hollowed out, carved out part of the mist. It's got a kind of, the mist is a sphere and it's got a missing chunk. Whereas, and as Zebek walks, it's sort of a little slow, but it kind of follows him and he's just kind of looking around at the ground, at the mountain. But the mist has this hole in it.
Could you re-explain where we are? There's the white stone.
Here's the white
pyramid.
stone thing. I'm just showing him on a picture. Here's the white stone thing. Y'all have actually, this is the one y'all came in. But, the dragons in the river. Y'all are here. Y'all are right now about right here, like just
Okay.
below the.
So we're in front of the pyramid.
Y'all have come and y'all are just below this. The mountain is like right under here. This huge disc that has no visible supports except for the center that touches the mountain, and then
And the sphere is all around the
it's
disc.
the disc is like this, just barely visible, but it is a white line, and the sphere is the size of that disc, except for like in a few feet or something.
Okay.
From underneath, you can see through the mist that it's just a whole disc, not just a band. But when Zebek goes under there, it kind of carves out a chunk of that sphere. It's missing it. As he walks around, it's sort of like he's negating that mist. You've seen him do that before, but this is like really, really pronounced. And partially because you can see, you know. It gives you a sense, by the way, of scale. The radius of, he seems to be having this effect because you can see, now you're not in a forest right now, you can see the whole thing. He seems to be having this effect for, you would say, maybe, let me get, I have an actual number here, let me think, let me translate this from yards. About a quarter mile carve out, about a quarter mile above him, it's carving out this shape. Diamondback. For the first time, Inkatink, for the first time, you can almost see how far you need to be from Zebek because it's making this sphere of hollow in the mist, and your imagination can complete that and see that you're outside of that by a few hundred feet.
That's pretty cool.
It's like your mind can fill in that data.
Wait,
So you
so
see these openings.
So Neno's going to try and do some cantrip, or why not, just to see if she has magic back.
You're in
It's
the
such a-
space still. Are you?
Right.
Because you're with him. And no, you
I
can't.
was just thinking, since the mist was so much richer here, maybe
Oh, no.
it overpowered whatever she had with her.
If you just want to walk a little bit back, because Zebek's been kind of meandering around, you can walk outside of what appears to be this sphere around Zebek. It still has no effect. You are not able to do a cantrip.
Okay.
The mist itself of the sphere isn't touching down where you are, but you yourself, even though you're outside of Zebek's sort of sphere, yours. You're not able to
Oh,
cast magic.
slimy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yoshika says, no. Do you remember that stone we got of Spolash's aide de camp?
Oh, she says, but
Where we
Roger
could,
doesn't.
where they would speak to each other, and we could hear Spolash.
Yes.
The two
The
stones.
walkie-talkie stones.
Yes. I am wondering if this big disc is friends with the white pillars they leave in the villages they bless.
I mean, my guess is it must be floating white stone. How many kinds of that can there be?
And there's so much mist all around it. Do you remember the priest in Garatone drawing power from calling on Garatone and drawing power through the stone?
A horrified howl pierces out from the edges of this disc and then dies off.
We need to get up there and find out who is being tortured.
Diamondback, it seems empty where you see the room that you looked in.
And I'll just listen for the remainder of the 10 minutes of the spell to see if I hear anything. I switch
Nothing
back
other
and
than the howl.
I switch back to seeing just in case anybody comes in the room. And the spell wears out, I don't get anything new. Cool.
Is it any quiet? Is the howling any quieter for him when he's magic listening than it is for us when we're listening?
You don't know.
But he might, because he was.
Yeah,
He hears both. He hears two howls. One relatively undistorted but muffled, and also the loud one that follows it a few seconds later out where you are.
Okay. So I think that the howling is closer to where I'm standing than where there is. Because it's
No.
louder.
No, because it comes a little after.
Okay.
Your magical sensor hears it first, dimly,
Okay. But it's muffled.
and then you hear it
Interesting.
louder and more distorted where you are.
Okay, cool.
Matt, to you, does it sound like it's the same sound, or does it sound like a small howl and then a larger howl?
Smaller than larger. The larger one delayed, probably similar but distorted. The larger one delayed by a few seconds.
So I'm trying to ask Matt if it's one sound that he's hearing twice, the second one a delay of the first one, or if it's two different sounds.
Oh.
Something making a small howl, something making a big howl.
I assumed it was the same sound being heard from two different perspectives.
That's a reasonable way to think about that. What now?
Well, we came to talk to the six. So far, we've only seen the old man. If there's a way to get that appears to be the center of everything. If there's a way to get up there, let's do it.
Ink Tink says, we came here to explore options and bring anarchy. And I think we've explored our options.
Inketing's all out of bubblegum.
Yeah, we should burn this place.
Yeah, so
There's nothing to burn. It's stone and dirt.
We should go back and burn all the guards' houses.
also stone.
Break all the cages.
But there's metaphorical fire, right?
My rage
Okay.
will set even stone on fire.
In here.
That's right. So what do you want to do?
Approach the pyramid and see if there's some way up or in or a door or anything.
You do. It is featureless as far as you can tell. It's a hill, but the stone is the white stone. It's not smooth. It's something like carved, but it's hewn, not like polished. But there does not seem to be any feature. There doesn't seem to be a meaningful. There's it meets the mountain if you were to try to climb it, but there's nothing.
Mr. Eagle Eye, is there a hole? If we were to climb to the top of the mountain, is there a door to get in?
There is not. He says.
Yoshika calls out loudly,
That was really close. That was really close.
For the dragon.
Yeah, he jumps up. Or, he clambers up out of the little river divot that he's in, which has not enough water now. That's Alex standing back, and he kind of goes and does a fly around. He spirals around this mountain thing, whatever. When Zevek stands directly underneath everything, by the way, his sphere intersects all the way into the white stone as well. Like it's big, right? Like a quarter mile up. So anyway, Zevek, I'm sorry, spirals around and also climbs up climbs up and goes around the disc and a little higher towards the edge of the undulating mist. He's reticent to go much higher because he's by himself at that point. But comes down and reports.
I see nothing below, but above. Some edifice, some structure. It has openings and holes into which I can place you all, but I see no way that any other than such as myself could approach.
It appears to be secure and that no one from below could climb in, get in, but from somebody already there, can see out.
The bastion seems secure.
Well, there's only one of you left to take care of your kin, but there are still many of us. Would you risk dropping us off?
Would you have me take you up and then leave again to care for my wormling?
Well,
He's asking what you mean.
it seems like we're just getting to the closest part, and we sure could use your help, but I'll go in first.
He says,
I am willing to continue to the end, but only with
and he kind of glances around.
the rest of you and your peculiar friend.
But he says also,
I cannot enter in through the small holes I see. I will look for another way after I have brought you in.
Okay. Thank you.
if y'all are game for that, he's willing.
I'm game, and now I'm wondering if Arasanala would come up or would stay down or would be on the dragon at the same time as Civic.
I suppose we should send to ask what she would have.
The dragon, hearing you say that, turns around and just stretches his form really far down, like not super far, but he's 100 and something feet long, and he slithers his head up and pokes his head to you, Diamondback and Arasanala, and says, and Ingatinks there as well, and says,
Greetings, witch. Are you having fun yet?
she hisses at him, but it's a mix of irritation and good-natured irritation. Diamondback, roll an insight check.
And flirtatiousness.
Well, they're both scaly. Diamondback, roll a nature check.
Yeah. Oh, nature?
No, I'm sorry. Not nature. Insight.
Okay, great.
You can too if you want.
18.
Indeed, I shall. Insight, you say?
Uh-huh.
Nat 20.
All right.
23 total.
You glance at each other and have the same kind of thought, which is this kind of thing that they're doing. They clearly know each other and are not exactly friends, but not exactly enemies. Your strong impression is that with an 18 and a 20, let me find it. Yeah. Okay. You both have basically the same number pop into your head as you think these two have known each other for 1,000 years. And you're about right. That's just kind of the nature of that relationship. You sort of, you're in the presence of a very, very old thing.
The romantic tension has long ago sublimated into mere companionship.
It's a long time to leave each other's Tinder profiles on read.
When he wasn't even a dragon, just a wormling, and she hadn't raised her first victim from the dead. So
when he hadn't had his first clutch and she had no dead people in her clutches. Yes.
It is so interesting. It's almost like you would get tired of being enemies after that long and just kind of leave each other alone or something. All right, I'm just
it's good.
appreciating.
Yeah, it's good. He negotiates with her in a mixture of common and dragon and a language, Diamondback, that you don't understand, that appears to be natural to Arasanala. They just sort of, and he says,
I will take him first then and come for you.
And Arasanala scoffs lightly. She just sort of like, as though, really? And she, I got to look at this real quickly. I'm just looking something up real quickly just to make sure. Okay. She reaches out a finger and taps Diamondback, you, and Inkatink. Just gives you each a tap, which is very uncommon for her, but she just taps you straight on your forehead, both of you, and the three of you start floating from the ground.
Hot dog.
She says,
nice.
She says, do not touch me, dragon.
We go with the cool ghost Naga lady. Y'all can ride the dragon. We got our own way to get up there. Thank you very much.
18
Magic.
piece out.
So you all are ascending as
Inkatink makes the sound of a falling star. You hear a as they fly away.
I'm going to guess that the Snake Clan acolytes are not also floating with us.
That's correct.
So they go with the other team, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. So he ferries everybody up. You're no longer flying because Zebek is now in the same place as you. However, it's not nearly as dark as it was. The mist is hollowed out. He is there. As he arrives, you hear clatterings from various places in these tunnels and halls. It sounds something like this. Couple of
smatterings of clatterings.
That's right, exactly. That was great. Amidst your various chatterings, and finally, everybody's ready. You poke your head into the hallway. It is empty, but it's also empty of mist. It is not light by any means. It's a dark, weird, cave-ish thing. But you cannot get away from. You were trying to figure out what kind of house? No. Fortress? No. Cave? No. And all of you are chattering about this. And somebody, Neno, I would imagine, hits on the right word. And it's the right word, but you're super uncomfortable with it being the right word. Because it's not really what this must be. But you figure out what?
My guess is Warren.
Palace.
Oh, that's not the same at all.
As a matter of fact, you find that this structure that you're in, as you approach, you hear lots of crazy noises. The howlings have begun to stop. And now it's been a little too long since you've heard one. The cadence has broken. Nobody's quite sure what's going on, but you find yourself at the opposite wall of the palace, looking out into what you think is a courtyard through an opening. It is denuded of mist. If ever there was, there's not now. Zevek seems to be suppressing it, if that's that. Here's what you see. And there are quite a few of you there, but this courtyard is completely paved, like it with this same kind of weird stonish stalactite minerally thing, but it's a nice flat courtyard. It's like well made, or
All white.
sorry, grayish brownish, the colors of stalagmites. There is a carved, not grown, for lack of a better word, and I'm going to say this to you guys, your characters probably wouldn't have this word, but in the very center, a ziggurat, a sort of step pyramid. But it has an uncomfortable 6 sides rather than 4. Not that you've particularly seen a lot of pyramids or ziggurats, but it doesn't seem right. And the 6 sides don't seem exactly symmetrical. It's also kind of grown, but it's a clear ziggurat that's maybe 50, 60, 70 feet high. Out of the top of the ziggurat, the top seems to have been cut off, and water burbles richly out of the top, splashing out almost like a fountain coming down off of each of the 6 faces into a trench 2 feet wide, cut. Oh, I'm sorry. The courtyard floor here is the white stone, but the rest of it is the stalagmite. A trench 2 feet wide, cut in, runs out and through. This is clearly the 6 rivers coming out, falling, gaining volume as they do. Even here in front of you, it's too little water coming for the amount that's passing by you. It's being added, it's being filled with this darkness all the time. Looking out around you, this courtyard is filled with creatures. Frozen? Not frozen. Still. Not preserved, but preserved. They are too lifelike to be taxidermied, but they are unnaturally still. They look as though they're bound or unable to move. On one face of the ziggurat, you see some shape that does not fit anything else that you know what to do with here. And it takes you a few moments to grasp what it is. The white stone has been carved into 2 kind of lumps that slide back. And the 2 lumps of the white stone are bright red, clearly the stone itself is white, but it's got this bright redness on it. And a sort of archway comes over the top of the white stone there, mounted into the ziggurat. But the archway has these mounds above it. And all of you at about the same time have a sort of sickening-ish realization that the red is a kind of carved white stone tongue. And the archway above is a kind of upper lip. And the redness on the tongue is the blood. Because you see a figure standing with a creature you don't quite recognize. It is some bound creature. Something kind of monstrous, but something clearly also not an animal, some kind of intelligent thing. It almost looks like the Etten you met, but it's not. It's a different kind of thing than that, the two-headed creature you met in the dark. It's clearly saying something to them and pleading, and the robed, purple-skinned figure in front of it, there's a couple of them there, slit its throat. The blood flows, and it scrambles, its feet slipping on the white stone, and it tries to grasp and slides down the throat, howling. And a few moments after, you hear this echoing howl through the floor below you, these little tunnels and tubes, trumpets out to the side, the echo blaring out from the white stone edge of the creature screaming and howling. And it ends. This menagerie all around are being given into this mouth at the base of this ziggurat, out of which the water flows to become the rivers. But they're not killing them first. They're giving them a mortal blow, letting the blood and washing them into whatever the source of this water is. As you all approach, the sphere cuts through this, and they turn and look at you, and you see several figures in purple, several figures of the purple skin, and several over elsewhere. They turn to you. It is one of them. They're wearing well-made clothing. One of them looks like a woman of the same species, whatever they are, with a black bandage around her eyes, wrapped all the way around. Another is in the middle of, has just stopped, was in the middle of working with one of these, some undead looking creature. And you see, he looks normal, but he has skeletal hands with flaps of skin hanging down next to them.
Wera, who closes her eyes, and Garaton of the Flayed Hands.
You see 6 of these figures, and they turn in unison and look at you, all of you, the 6 of you, and say, in perfect unison, "Yes, come." And that's where we'll end this episode. Thanks for playing. Thanks for listening. You can find out more about this story and the stories we're telling at starfallcollective.com.